Hey, welcome back to Midas Letter Live. My guest in this segment is Brandon Colwell and Karl Boyd.
It's a hard one.
I know. Who are the co-founders of Follow the Money Investor Group, which you can find online at FTMIG.com or Facebook.com/Follow the Money Investor Group, all written out just like that. Gentlemen, thanks for joining.
You did that without even looking too. That was fantastic.
I finally memorized it because I said it 50 times before we started.
Yeah.
So, Follow the Money Investor Group. Tell me, how did it get started? How many members do you have? What's the whole story?
Well, the starter right here and co-founder.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? My partner and I, we were in another group, just speculating in the cannabis stocks about 2-3 years ago, and we really enjoyed that group. But there was a lot of conversations that wasn't very constructive.
Pumperdoodles?
Well, yeah,
a lot of them.
that.
A lot of pumperdoodle.
Yeah.
You know,
God, I hate that.
I think it's more so just it's okay for people to not agree, but
Right.
it's how you're going to go about your conversation and being constructive, right?
Right. Yeah.
So instead of fighting and arguing with people, which we were doing, we wanted to just let's do our own thing. Start our own Facebook group, and we'll let people talk, but we'll just moderate it and a little bit. And if people are just going to be insulting others, we're not going to have that, right?
Right.
So that's sort of how it started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's just grown ever since. I mean, I came in around November or so, and I remember Karl telling me, like, who on earth is this guy who just keeps talking? And I was a huge still am a huge cannabis advocate, because I've been in cannabis since Bedrocan.
Huh.
So I had Canopy at $1.60,
Wow.
and I never looked back.
Wow.
And
so you're one of those 2,600% winners.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. I actually sold that and went into Aurora at $2.
Wow.
So then kept going. I had a few
you
bad
bragging or
ones.
complaining?
Bragging, but then comes January, and there was a few not so smart decisions there. But it's just nice to see the progression that the group has made over the last 6 to 8 months, where it was just focused on just a couple of stocks, just people coming together,
right,
wanting to talk about a company together without everyone bashing and screaming from side to side. So now we cover well over 50 different companies in cannabis, in blockchain, energy, and mining. Really, where if someone's talking about it in our group, we start looking into it, and we start growing from that. So it's been a really interesting journey over the last little while.
Okay, so people are coming and joining this group to find investment ideas, to discuss investments they're in, where they find a common community without any pumping or bashing.
In a constructive way, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, interesting. So you're in cannabis, cryptocurrencies or blockchain, and mining.
And
mining.
How Canadian.
Yeah, and the mining is actually relatively new for myself personally. I was always cannabis. But then I started branching over just a few months ago with Karl and a bunch of others. We have some people who have been on oil rigs and been mining themselves for years. It's an interesting sector. And I think you can attest that right now is a pretty interesting time for it, because it's drilling season, especially for Canada.
Everybody should go look at charts.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Seriously. And so it's been very interesting.
Huh. So tell me about some of the cannabis plays that you're in, or the stories that you're in now that are popular on your group. What's really hot?
You want to start?
Yeah, several, although some not so much in the right way.
Okay.
It's been an interesting time, as a lot of valuations hit record highs and then have just come down and down and down. I personally think, this is just a personal opinion, now is the time you should be looking into getting back into some of these plays, because the summer lows are getting very close. I was watching today, actually, several of them are hitting their 52-week low. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's a time to buy, but it's a good time to at least look into them. So a few that people really look into, I know American is a huge story a lot of people are talking about, because that stock has also had its really high and come down for a low as well. And it's interesting because there's a lot of controversy. I've seen you on here with Ben before talking about the controversies there. It's a great company, and there's a lot of interesting things there. But this private placement that's about to close, I think August 9th was the date. It's interesting because that could be the turning of a page of a new chapter. Because a lot of the things that plagued them are now in the past. They're now financed for the next phase. So a lot of people are like, okay, when's it going to move? When's it going to move? When's it going to move?
Right, so they're pretty well distributed around the world at this point.
Very much so. Out in Malta, out in Germany, their hemp's coming up. So a lot of our investors are actually talking about that stock because it's a great value that they see personally.
Sure.
But just they're curious, can they make the next step? So that's what people are looking for. They're looking for those ones that can still be that 2-bagger, 3-bagger more.
Right. Do you notice the sort of the similarities between the sort of the summer drift in the
Absolutely.
cannabis stocks that we call Muskoka fever, and that you see in mining stocks, and when there's a good mining market? If there's been a boom in mining stocks in the beginning of the year, we see the drift happen, the sell and May and go and wait kicks in. But in years where there's nothing, no money to be made, it's just like flatline right across the year.
It's double trouble. Like you could kill it in mining and then flip into cannabis.
Yeah.
Right?
I think a lot of people are trying that too.
Yeah. Full disclosure, American's a client of ours, so
very
we
cool.
don't want any liabilities.
Oh, so you guys also take on client contracts with issuers.
Well,
and in mining as well.
And obviously you full disclosure, you disclose it.
Exactly.
We've toured that facility. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's the American one.
Yes.
In
Langton.
Langton.
Very
we haven't been there yet, and we're going to.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that phase one's getting closer and closer to being finished. I remember I went there because we also went to Matica out in Quebec, and it was 10,000 square feet, and it was a beautiful, beautiful place. And then you're able to go to that Langton facility though and go, oh my goodness! Like I didn't know that cannabis facilities were made that big.
Really?
Yeah.
So that was
impressive.
interesting.
And you know, it's funny he brings up Matica. That was actually that was the company that I started talking about in the other Facebook group that we were in, and it had a lot of haters, and probably for some good reasons. But I saw opportunity because I thought, you know what? I believe at that time there's still a lot of hype in that space, which turned out to be true. And so I was an early speculator in cannabis as well. And then right after the November halts, if you guys will remember, I decided to, I reevaluated. I said, you know what, I'm going to pull my money from the big LPs and I want to get into a late stage applicant because, you know, those things were really taking off in the sector, right? Like huge gains. And so my partner and I, we found Matica because they had issued a news release that they were looking to get into a late stage, and the stock was trading around 2.5, 3 cents, right? But because they had some failures in the past, I mean, there's a lot of haters, a lot of people holding the bag, and that's when people were not being constructive with their arguments. So you know what? I said, you know what? Let's go down. Like I googled the address. I'm like, wow, they're downtown Toronto. This is where I live. Knock on the door. Walk in, I meet the CEO, and you know, got a feel for him. And I left after a couple meetings with him. I felt, you know what, they're very serious about, you know, picking up a late stage applicant. So I kept increasing my position, and then I actually got into a private placement with them and ended up doing very, very well.
What's the symbol on that one?
MMJ.
MMJ.
Can't beat that ticker.
That's a pretty good ticker, all right.
They're not a client of ours. That's just you know, and their stock has really just tanked with many others.
Waiting for the cultivation.
Look at that chart.
Absolutely. And there's been some delays, and they don't have their license yet, right? So we'll see what happens. I still own a ton of my warrants with them.
Oh, okay. So then if, you know, cannabis is doing its thing, I agree that I think there's going to be some screaming buys. There's going to be a whole bunch of value catalysts once everybody comes back from Muskoka.
Yeah.
But what about mining? Now we're looking at Sokoling Gold, and it's you know,
sick. SIC.
Sick. It is sick.
It's been a sick run the last little while.
Sometimes the symbol just so well matches the performance of the stock.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, and then NASDAQ magazine published a story apparently that said that Canadian cannabis and gold deals are back on.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that one.
Which I thought was interesting because it's like one screaming hole and the whole industry's back on. That's an interesting.
Yeah, what was it? 44 grams of gold per ton or something like that.
Over 11 meters.
And that was a fantastic run. And then I was watching it earlier today. It had a run. I think it pulled back a little bit. I haven't seen the last
49
couple of hours.
now.
Yeah, so it pulled back a little bit, but man, that chart is just.
It was on fire, and then you start seeing in our chat room. You start seeing it. The first mention's like, "Oh, this is sick. I think this is a pretty good drill results." I'm like, "Okay." And then another person comments, and then you see it on Twitter, and it just exploded. So it was very interesting.
I want to give a quick little shout out to all of our members because I did a Facebook Live Friday before the long weekend, and I told everyone, you know, go and enjoy your weekend, but take some time and do your due diligence, especially on these mining plays, because we're starting to see the volumes pick up. Yeah. And this morning, just before I came here, crazy the amount of due diligence that these people have done. I learned so much. Even there's one of my holdings is Canadian Cobalt, CCW, Canada Cobalt, I think. Anyway, yeah. So we were watching that thing trade, and right on news, all of a sudden there was like blocks of shares coming from a CIBC seller, and someone was doing the due diligence over the weekend and found out that it was one of the directors that was selling. So then people were freaking out, And it's like, no, someone got in contact with that camp, and it was like his wife was sick, and that's why he was selling. So I mean, this is what our group is really about. You know, all of this
research.
Absolutely.
Research.
And I try to push people to get there and do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, part of the reason I was interested in having you guys on in the first place is I'm finding out that the community at large is able to, you know, bring a lot more information to the table than you can even get reading an analyst report. An analyst report gets a presentation from the company and has to go with that. You guys send people out to the field.
Oh, absolutely. I would make an argument that some of these retailers do much better due diligence than institutions. I mean, when you bring bright people together that have good intentions, that want to work together, and there's trust involved, it is crazy. You know, we're in the information age, and you know, that's what we're promoting, right?
Yeah, I was interested in if we just look at the Sable Resources chart. So these guys put out a hole this morning. There it is. Sable intersects 514 grams per ton silver equivalent over 12.4 meters, including 902 grams per ton equivalent over 4.1 meters. Now, I thought it was interesting because here we have another screamer hole. This is in Mexico, and yet the stock traded 124,000 shares and is up 4 cents.
Eric Sprott didn't go into the private.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure he did go into SIC for $3 million, wasn't it?
Well, interestingly enough, Tom Obradovich is the CEO of this. He has an office in this building, and he was in the last deal, Barkerville Gold, with Eric Sprott. He was the CEO of Barkerville during the cleanup. So I would have thought that this hole would sort of, you know, where's the confetti? Where's the ticker tape parade for this?
What's interesting about that exact point, though, is that you'll find like a Garibaldi is another one, GGI. And I don't know, we're doing this full disclosure, we both own stocks in that as well. But what's interesting is that you could have the best holes or the best results or the best cannabis company, but if people don't know you're the best, you're not the best.
Right.
Change it to the guard. The retailers are your biggest cheerleaders.
And they need to find that information. That's what I loved about Midas Letter, seeing all your interviews you're doing with the CEOs and the different articles, what we're doing with our group and our community, bringing people together. We want to show good stories. At the end of the day, one of the main things about our group is we are not allowed saying buy, sell, or hold. We're not financial advisors. You cannot say that. There's legal reasons behind that. There's ethical reasons, whatever.
And we moderate that. Like if people do that,
you'll get kicked out very easily.
Are you allowed to go and say I'm buying SIC today because the chart's on fire and I think it's got a lot more to go? There's another 12 holes at the lab, apparently, more results coming in 2 weeks. I mean, it's a perfect storm of an opportunity.
Due diligence.
Well, yeah.
Due diligence with if you're going to pump up a stock or if you're going to bash a stock, whatever it be, because constructive criticism, that's still good.
Sure.
Have a reason behind it. There's a difference between saying, oh, the CEO's terrible, I hate him, blah, blah, to he's not performing, and you're actually being an adult about it. You're bringing some information to it. That's important.
We just don't like when people go and start a post and they're like, hey, go buy American or go look at, basically go buy American, it's going to rocket. I mean, there's just nothing behind that.
Well, like Stockhouse, which is, you know, universally reviled as the domain of bashers and slashers and pumpers and dumpers, and you know, and the quality of the conversation is decidedly, I don't think even Stockhouse would argue with you. It's decidedly, you know, it's ridiculously biased. It's ridiculously, you know,
it is
contrived, and there's very little value there in terms of research.
It's so hard to find good information. It's like online dating. You're just swiping. You know what I mean? It's like you got to sift through all the crap, and we don't want that.
Do you guys are you guys following any other mining companies that you think have the potential, that are drilling, that might knock one out of the park here anytime soon here?
Go for it.
Yeah. Oh, we actually, funny enough, 2 other clients of ours.
Okay.
We'll put it up. But it's interesting because the volume has not been there recently. But it has been showing up in the last little while as they started getting through their earnings and actually having the property under their name and beginning drilling for one of them. PGE and MMG, Metallic Minerals and Group 10 Metals.
Wow, Metallic. I've been following that stock for years.
And one of them, Greg Johnson, is the CEO there. And we got to go for lunch with him once. And we speak quite regularly over email and things like that since. It was really interesting hearing his story because he told not just the story of his company, but he's told the story of the last 15 years of mining to go with it. You know, talking about how we've been in a bear market since 2011, and then 2015, 16 is when you really started seeing, wait a second, people are talking about it again. People are coming out to PDAC again. And this is starting to, you could see that we may be coming out of a recession almost, or a bear market in the mining sector.
Well, where we are in the mining, in that cycle, very interesting.
Yeah, do you guys follow the metals at all? For example, we're looking at copper, which there's 3 major strikes in the world right now affecting more or less 5% of global primary supply, yet the copper price is still in the crapper.
It makes no sense.
Right.
And it makes no sense.
And
so
the
do you
supply
subscribe to the theory that the commodities futures trading market is largely responsible for the price inefficiencies that seem to be plaguing the actual price of the metals?
For me personally, I wouldn't know enough about the futures market to be able to comment on that, not intelligently at least. But what I don't get is I've been reading for years. Like I took economics in school, and I've always been fascinated by it. And one thing that people kept talking about was copper. We're in a huge shortage, and I think it started this year, and it's going to peak in 2020 because there's no new mines coming up.
Right.
And when you have a shortage, the invisible hand is supposed to be moving that price upwards because you know that demand is still there.
Right.
But we're still building things. We're still using copper for batteries, for everything else.
Yeah.
Yet the price isn't moving with it. So I don't know enough to speak on the exact futures if that's what's causing it, but I do know enough to wonder why isn't it moving.
Right.
Very interesting. Yeah.
So it is something that I feel like you have an answer to that, though.
Well, you know, my circle of friends are universally of the opinion that the invisible hand, if you will, the natural market effect of balance in the supply and demand context has been completely corrupted by the futures trading market, where the quantity of copper traded in paper contracts far exceeds the amount of physical copper available to trade by a factor of 10 and sometimes 100.
Yeah.
And
So saturated?
well, they're trading, for example, they're trading $100 billion worth of paper contracts in a market where there's only $10 billion worth of copper available.
Yeah.
So how can that constitute an actual forward price discovery mechanism?
Right.
It's actually a forward price determination mechanism.
Yeah.
And because they control both sides of the market, the largest trading houses, they're able to create paper wins for themselves in this teeter-totter.
Manipulation. Do you feel like that's
very interesting?
Yeah. What about gold too? Do you feel like that's manipulation?
Well, I mean, in contrast to entities like BNN, for example, who will not let anybody on who's going to say that there's an inefficiency in gold pricing that's the result of a manipulation.
Right.
Despite the fact that we've seen multiple cases of attempted prosecutions and prosecutions in progress of gold price manipulation everywhere from the gold price fix group in London to I'm not going to say, well, there's been futures trading attempts to reveal the futures trading manipulation by insiders. So the evidence is almost conclusive, I would say, that this situation exists. However, we are sort of supposed to be of the sort of mindset that it's just the way it is.
And I hate that term. I hate that term. It's just the way that it is. Because if it's just the way that it is, usually it's retail investors getting the short end of the stick.
Right.
Almost every time. Oh, it's just the way it is.
Right.
You just know you can't go against the institutions. Wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Right.
Retail investors actually have a lot of money in the stock market, and we're getting more educated. And what's really interesting, something that I started seeing myself and just talking to people, when that whole cannabis frenzy happened, the biggest rush was obviously last November. It's happened for the last 3 years, but that last November, there were times at TD Bank that you were waiting anywhere from a week to 2 weeks to get your TFSA open. And if you ask them why, they specifically said there are too many people opening up TFSAs because they're all going into cannabis. They were telling clients this. So I see, and I'm just speaking to a lot of people, that a lot of the investors who are there right now who went into cannabis in January and February, et cetera, I don't think they've ever invested before. There's a huge market of people out there like, you know what, this is all skyrocketing, I want a piece of it. And they either had their huge gains or they're wondering, oh no, what did I do? Because they bought in January or February. But that's a huge amount of people who are now, okay, my money's in the game now I need to start researching. It's not that they weren't unintelligent people, they just didn't know before. It was scary to them.
A lot of hype there too. It's
a lot of hype
scary
as well.
when your neighbors are like, hey, I'm going to buy a cannabis stock.
Yeah,
they don't know much about it.
Well, new investors are, it's just a rite of passage that you begin investing emotionally, and you ultimately learn to invest with discipline and forward planning and research. And if you don't learn that, you're either extremely lucky or you're out of the game and you've blown yourself up.
And that's why it's so important, in my opinion, in Karl's opinion, our group's opinion, to invest in a community. Doesn't necessarily have to be ours. I think ours is fantastic. There's a little bit of bias there.
Yeah.
But be in a community where you can bounce ideas off of people.
Sure.
You can learn. You can educate yourself. That's what I think is so important.
Yeah, if you can trust the sources. I mean, don't.
If you can trust them.
You can tell. Like I can tell the energy in our chat rooms, and a lot of people just buy stuff because other people are talking about it, which is not. I'm not promoting that.
Sure. So. Do you guys track your performance of companies that you're in and sort of display hey, we bought this, we deployed X capital at this time, and now we're up this much?
You know what? It was an idea of mine. Didn't really pass the legal team. But we can double check that.
Okay.
I mean, that was something I wanted to do, was just to put it up there and track. I don't know why it didn't pass the legal team.
Okay, well, because I think that we should talk about that, because there's a great opportunity there, both to run a contest and also to put some money into your guys' picks and see how you make out.
You know, it's interesting. We almost did have that contest. There were people who wanted to have it. Some of our traders who trade much more aggressively. Like, we're talking 5 screens in front of them, stuck there from the moment it opens to the moment it closes.
Wow.
And we were going to have one of those, but there's a couple of things. We didn't want too many people buying into it as well.
Yeah.
Because then you're really promoting a buy and a sell, and we're not financial advisors. Well, so it's a little bit finicky of an area.
It's cool. I get what you're talking about. I'd love to do that, though.
Yeah,
I really would.
Well, we will. Because I mean, there is nothing wrong with saying, I'm buying this, and I'm selling this, and here's why. And as long as you're not in any way saying you should buy this because it's going here, then you're in the clear.
And you know what?
You shouldn't do that, because there is a lot behind it.
Well, and plus, you could be wrong.
For me,
that too.
I've always been just way more comfortable talking about what I own. They're not necessarily clients. Most of what I talk about.
That's how we get around it. Is I just talk about what am I buying? What am I holding? What have I got?
Yeah.
You know, what have the people on the show holding? What have they got? And that's why.
And it's a good way of doing that way.
We've had some big winners, like changed my life type of winners. So
really?
Matica's stock has crashed, obviously, but we were talking about it when it was 2.5, 3 cents. It went all the way up to, I think, 81 or 82 cents, right, in the hype of the last bull run in the cannabis space. But Garibaldi, a lot of our community was talking about it when it was in its 30s. I got in when at 64 cents and had a nice position. It went all the way up over $5. MTS, which is a property that's I don't want to go as far as saying area play. They have some gold stuff going on there as well. That's been a big winner for our community. CCW.
CLM at times. It's gone.
We should also give a shout out to Bull Market Run, which is a newsletter, a paid subscription-based one. I don't own it. I have no monetary, gain.
Bull Market Run.
Bull Market Run. I don't get paid.
John over there does a very good job.
But very, very good due diligence.
Oh, okay, we'll have to have him on the show too.
Yeah.
You should.
Absolutely.
And we love meeting people like that, because again, it's just, you're building a network, you're building a community. Whether it's you're building it to invest with, because you're all bouncing ideas off each other, like we said numerous times, but also, as an investor, we want to build a community where we have multiple avenues of information, so they can't go, oh, you told me to buy this, you told me this. No, we've given you so much. We've given you interviews, news releases, articles. We've got Midas Letter up there. You've got 420 Investor up there. You've got all these different areas where you can learn from. That's what we're pushing. Learn.
Well, the thing I like about the great value proposition and the great sort of promise of the internet and the community it creates for me is that together we can collectively analyze the entire universe of stocks in any given sector and collectively arrive at, well, these are the best quality stocks in this sector based on these various parameters, and then we all buy them and take them higher. We're mutually successful, driving each other's success, lowering the cost of capital for the companies, and that's what I hope to achieve with my video platform by having guests like you guys on and other quality guests in the community. So I'm excited about that.
Absolutely.
You can find the good companies.
Getting in the early raises, CPCs, there's so much opportunity out there.
You bet.
You know what? Everybody should check out the hashtag #AllSharesMatter. There's a movement that's going on.
All shares matter.
Have you heard about it, James?
It's actually very...
All shares matter.
Interesting.
So on Twitter?
This has got documentary written all over it. You're going to love it, James.
It's very interesting. We're trying to do our best to keep up with everything and watching it where... I didn't mean to steal your thunder there. You're bringing it up there.
No, I don't even want to really talk too much about it. Maybe that's something we'll get onto with you in another program. But I'm just... everybody out there should just...
All shares matter is... that's coming up as CEO.ca.
Yeah.
Tommy,
Well, they got
there's a
some
lot
good
of different-
SEO going
It's
on.
all over the
Twitter.
it's all over the place.
Twitter.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
we take that into so people are starting to use the hashtag. To,
It's like some movement, man.
okay.
It's retailers fighting
all
back.
shares matter.
And it's basically saying that our retail investor shares matter as well.
Right.
Because there's a huge David and Goliath with retail investors and institutions. And for everyone to think all institutions are bad, that's just false. I don't think you know enough about the market if you honestly think that. But it does point out that if, as a shareholder, you do have a little bit of a say in a company, especially when you go in groups. So
Right.
very, very interesting. Lots to go on there. But we'll leave it at that for other people to search and research themselves. That's the whole point. Well, we'll put you down certain pathways. You go research and get the information for yourself.
There's an appropriate sentiment there.
There's a few there that you got to watch out. It's Twitter, just like other things. Some people take things a little bit farther than they should.
Yeah.
But
we haven't seen any compromised sexual positions yet, which is
no, this is good. Especially, it's probably a good thing this isn't necessarily a live one either, because then you can't block that out if that's the case.
Right.
Oh, Mr. Bean, great character.
Yeah, there's another great one. All right, guys. Well, this has been an excellent seminal conversation, and I think we're going to have to do this again and again and again. So I want to thank you for joining me today. And
thank you. Love your show. Thanks for having us on.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. We'll see you again soon.
All right.
Take care.